The old folks called it the Midnight Bus, a phantom ride that appeared when the clock struck 12, bathed in an eerie cold light. They said it preyed on the lost and the lonely, those who wandered in the dark with heavy hearts. Its destination? A place far worse than being lost, a place of no return. Most dismissed it as an old wives' tale, just a spooky story to frighten naughty children. But deep down, everyone knew. Some legends were rooted in truth. The night was still young, but the air was already thick with a chill. It was the kind of chill that seeped into your bones, no matter how many layers you wore. The kind of chill that whispered of things unseen and unheard. Jake Carter shivered, pulling his thin jacket tighter around him. He was stranded. The last bus had left an hour ago, leaving him alone at the desolate bus stop. His phone was dead. His hope was fading fast. He cursed under his breath. It was his own fault. That last-minute project had cost him his ride home. Now, he was paying the price. Alone, in the cold, with nothing but the echo of his own fear for company. Suddenly, a low rumble broke the silence. Headlights cut through the darkness, blinding him momentarily. A bus emerged from the shadows. It was old, rusty, and out of place. But it was a bus, and right now, that was all that mattered. Relief washed over Jake as he hailed the bus. It screeched to a stop in front of him, the doors groaning open. The air inside was colder than the night itself. The interior was dimly lit, shadows dancing in the corners. The bus was almost empty, strangely so. A gaunt figure sat behind the wheel, its face hidden in the shadows of a wide-brimmed hat. It didn't acknowledge Jake, didn't even glance his way. Jake hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. The doors hissed shut behind him, sealing him in the cold, unsettling silence. He chose a seat near the front, far from the few other passengers. Each one was as still and silent as statues, their faces hidden in the shadows. Their silence was unnerving, their stillness even more so. Section 4. Whispers and Shadows. As the bus rumbled into the night, Jake noticed something strange. The scenery outside the windows wasn't familiar. The streets were dark and deserted. Buildings loomed like silent giants, their windows dark and empty. It was like driving through a ghost town. A low hum began to vibrate through the bus. It grew steadily louder, morphing into a chorus of whispers. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Whispers of fear and regret, whispers of lost dreams and broken promises. He glanced at the other passengers. Their heads were turned, their eyes fixed on him. A wave of icy fear washed over him. He wanted to get off the bus, to run and never look back. But the doors remained firmly shut. There was no escape. Section 5. The Old Woman's Tale. An old woman sat a few rows behind Jake. Her face was a roadmap of wrinkles, her eyes filled with a strange knowing. She leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper above the hum of the bus. "This bus," she rasped, "it feeds on fear, on regret. The more you have, the longer it keeps you." Her words sent chills down his spine. Her gaze, filled with a mixture of pity and warning, held him captive. "It takes you to the source of your deepest fear," she continued, her voice trembling, "to a place where your regrets become your reality." Jake wanted to dismiss her words as the ramblings of an old woman, but something in her voice, something in the cold, fearful air around him, told him she was telling the truth. He was trapped. Section 6. Destination Eternal Rest. The bus screeched to a halt. The doors hissed open, revealing a sight that made Jake's blood run cold. They were at the entrance of a cemetery. Ancient, overgrown, and shrouded in an unnatural fog. The air reeked of decay and something else, something ancient and evil. The driver turned, his face finally illuminated by the pale moonlight. It was a skull, bare and grinning, its empty sockets burning with an eerie green light. "End of the line," the skull rasped, its voice a dry, rattling whisper. "Everyone off." The other passengers, their faces now visible in the ghostly light, turned to Jake. They were no longer strangers. They were reflections of his deepest fears, his darkest regrets given form, and they were coming for him. He stumbled off the bus, his heart pounding in his chest. He ran into the cemetery, the fog closing in around him like a suffocating blanket. But there was no escape. He could feel their presence behind him, their cold, dead hands reaching for him. As the shadows swallowed him whole, he realized the horrifying truth. He was no longer just a passenger. He was part of the legend now, the newest addition to the midnight bus. His fear, his regret, would fuel its journey night after night for all eternity.